All right. I'm hopping right back in. Let me say, I guess, first of all, hello to anybody that might be watching. Let's get a few things straightened out over here. Oop. Alrighty. All right. I think we're ready. So, welcome and thanks for watching. Anybody who is watching or sees the video, I am gonna let's see if we can refresh this. I'm just following up basically on what I worked on yesterday on the stream, which was this PostgREST with a T on the end server that allows you to store data inside of a PostgreSQL database, access it with an HTTP API. So how's that for acronyms on you, right? So basically we're sending data from the microcontroller, we're storing it. In my case on a Raspberry Pi, you could run this thing on a server, you could run it on inside Docker on whatever computer you want. You could just run it on your computer. Mine is on a Raspberry Pi. And that's what I'm doing. So if you want to see kind of the precursor to what I'm about to do, if you do happen to be watching this and didn't see yesterday, and you're interested in this topic, I would encourage you to go back and watch yesterday's stream, which you should be able to find on YouTube, where I did a bunch of the beginning part of this. So I'm going to continue on. The first thing actually that I want to try, which was not something I necessarily intended at first, but it's something I do actually want to try real fast, is can we, Swagger UI, can we get this thing set up so we can actually see the documentation visually? How do we do that? Download? Download it, why not? Just download the whole thing. You wouldn't download a UI, would you? I would. Okay, how do we like use it though, if we download it? Okay, first of all, that's not download, that's go to another page. Okay, how do I use it? How do I use it? Yes, 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 yes. I do want to know how to use it. Installation. Don't really want to use npm. I really want to use import syntax. Either truly. Unpack. This is kind of or my speed right here, I think. Or this kind of thing right here, actually. I mean, is this different? These two seem like the same. Download the latest release, copy the contents of dist to your server, open Swagger initializer.js in your text editor, and replace the URL. Okay, I can do that. That I can do. Why is that at the bottom? I don't know, that feels like the best option. Maybe I'm just weird? Okay, we need the latest release, and then that link actually take us there? Yeah. Dist. So I think, let me take dist. Let's put that inside static, but let's make a new. Why do you keep that? Okay. Well, we can change it when we paste. Yeah. Okay. Let's call that just swagger inside of static, so that then ultimately we're going to end up with this on the server, and then yeah, so like /static /swagger / I don't know, we don't really, do we need an index? I don't know if we need like an index. That's a little odd. How's it going, Johnny? Hope you're having a nice day. I think, what was it? Initializer? So ours will be, what will ours be? So it's the root URL. Can we call it localhost? We can't really call it localhost because this is in the front end. But we can just call it / I think. Okay, so index, I guess we need index because, well, we need an HTML page to load all of this stuff. Okay, it's a little weird that our visual doc will now be at /static /swagger /index, but I think that's fine for testing for now. So if we initialize that is back to like root URL, if I understand, which is where our docs are at. Okay, so we need to get, all of static over to the Pi. I am connected with SSH still. Well, again, playing with cheap yellow display. Nice. Cheap yellow display. So I am connected with SSH still. What we are going to do is not really, I mean, we could use like rsync or something. There's ways we could do that. I think what I'm going to do, though, is just use this thing, which lets me have like an actual file thing here. So we must be in, yeah, okay, so we're in home values conf, which is where our config and our PostgREST is at. So this is just where we were working. I think that's fine. Let's just paste into here. I'm going to open this too. And I'm going to take the whole static. I'm going to drop that into the home folder in the Pi. So this is in the Pi. Now we have static right there. And I'm going to move that static to wherever Nginx is looking. Why don't we go make an Nginx config while we're at it? Nginx. I'm going to copy default to, we're going to call that the IoT data server? IoT data server? Can't do that without sudo, though. Cannot do that without sudo either. All right, so we don't need probably very much different. Let me delete a bunch of this stuff. I guess we could keep it. Files, index. We are not using PHP, server name, our HTML, server. Honestly, we might not even need to change anything. Might be able to just leave this how it is. Let's try. So what we will do is we will go to sites enabled. We will delete this. Delete this. We will make a new link, sudo ln dash, I think, is it? I don't know if it's big or little. ln, I guess let's try sudo ln. Hope is there. Suffix is big S, symbolic. We want little s. Okay, sudo ln little s. And then what do we do? Target and then link name. So our target is, do we need to go like relative, or is it better to go absolute? No, it's available IoT. And then we want to call it just the same thing, which is IoT data server. That will be, I assume, / the directory we're in. Okay. Cat that. Okay, that works. And then that's looking inside var www HTML. Which has got the default Nginx page inside of it, which I'm just gonna move. So who owns this? Sudo move index. We're just gonna move this one to rename it as like Nginx default page HTML. All right, and then we want static to end up here, so I'm gonna go sudo cp home static cp-r home static. I don't know if that part matters. Let's do that, I guess. We'll just say /. Well, do we want static? Yeah, I think I want static in the mix still. Let's see what that does. Okay, yeah, that gave us static here. Yeah, very good. Okay. We can, let's try to make Nginx restart. Sudo service Nginx start. Do we see anything different here now? We should just be, so, oh, okay, so our URL totally needs a port inside of it. Yeah, that's not gonna work because it's not, right, it's not slash, it's port 3000 /. But Nginx is now listening on 80, I think, right? Got 403 for Bowden, okay. So yes, it is listening on 80, but for Bowden, I guess, I mean, for one thing, there's no page, right? If it's looking for index, index doesn't exist. Next default page. I think that's not gonna work either. Oh, it did, okay. Okay, so then maybe 403 is because we don't, so maybe 403 is because we don't have an index, it's falling back to like listing a directory, but listing a directory we don't have permission. If you want to be able to list directories, you need to like enable it somewhere in the Nginx config, I assume. It's not on by default. So now if I do /static, it is actually going to probably be serving index.html, but this index.html won't work unless it's also serving JS, which it is, but JS is going to try to fetch data, and my guess is that it's not going to work, because it's using some stuff that we have not built in yet to our API. Yeah, okay, so it's making a fetch, it's making a request for data, but it's getting a error. It's not a status code. Blocked? Why is it blocked? Okay, well, first of all, we wouldn't really want local host because that's client-side code. Local host is going to hit my host, my PC, my Ubuntu PC that I'm here streaming from, that my browser's open on, which is not what we want. We want it to hit, the Raspberry Pi, which is localhost to itself, obviously, but okay. But it's basically working. Let's see. I wish we could. So yeah, I guess I don't know. This can't really work, I guess, right? Because it's not on the same port, and you can't really just put a port before that. You need something, and then if we can't really put localhost because that's the same problem we were just looking at, which is that's going to hit the client's localhost. I guess we just hardcode the IP, which doesn't feel the greatest, but I suppose it works, maybe. So I suppose it works. So then, unfortunately, it's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to edit at this point. So if I'm just gonna go. If I grabbed this whole line. Okay, so then if we went static swagger, that will load index, which is inside of there, which did this stuff, which is trying to work, but it looks like somebody put a slash instead of a dot in there. I don't know who might have done that, but it's clearly not what it needs. And then that's just a static file, so we should be able to just refresh. Okay. Cross origin? The URL origin. Well, so, yeah, probably the correct solution is to also put PostgREST behind Nginx. I don't really want to do that this instant necessarily, though, if I'm honest. Okay, well, does this work? Let's get there. In fact, this won't work because I'm not running PostgREST. Okay, so let's run PostgREST. I'm just going to make a new window, also an SSH again. So I foresee with my crystal ball wanting to be able to have multiple windows. My Mexican neighbor had a party last night, brought a plate of carnitas. Nice. Their exchange for letting his friends use my driveway for overflow parking. What a deal. First time I tried them, absolutely delicious. Nice. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's see, what is it? It's only 2. So. All right, so then just to run that, it's easy. We just go PostgREST. We point it at our config. That's the same config I worked on yesterday. Now we should be able to get the docs API JSON thingy here. And then does this work? I mean, I don't think there is CORS. Yeah, there we go. So there is not actually, seems like CORS is not a problem. We don't necessarily need to try to solve it by putting it behind Nginx, although I will still say I'm probably pretty sure that best practice would be still to put PostgREST behind Nginx also, so that PostgREST, this service right here, is actually only listening on localhost only, but Nginx is taking requests from the outside and proxying them. Because that's kind of like generally the best way to go, rather than exposing something like PostgREST straight out to the internet. Although in my case, we're not on the internet, we're on the local network. All right, let's take a look at this. Got so excited that it worked, I didn't even really look that much at it. So we got the base URL, got a nice link to it there. Of course, that's just going to go to the JSON file. We should maybe try to change this up so that the docs JSON is not served at root, and maybe root should be like, I mean, either the visual docs or like eventually root, I guess, will be kind of like a page that's going to output the data for us. All right, introspection. So we have get root currently is this document. We have the data values API, so /data values. Ooh, look at that. We have a nice little form with all of these. Doesn't want to let us fill it in for some reason. I guess we need to click try it out. If we just, oh, did that run right there? No, that's just an example. So if we go execute, look at that, it gives us a curl even. That's pretty nice. Responses. Undocumented. Example model. Sample value model. /6 partial content. I mean, this feels like the docs, right? This is telling us what's possible. I don't know, did it actually execute? Is this the output? The output. Response content type is, yeah, it should be JSON. Is that working? I think it should be working, right? Looks good. Data values. Oh, but it wouldn't be zeros. Well, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's weird. I don't know why that's substituted in there, but like it totally knows up here that yeah. I mean, let's look in here. Is it like making course failed? Okay, it is making, no, but that's the wrong one. You can't send it to there. I think, right? That's never gonna work. So base URL is wonky on us. That's probably why we're not seeing the response. That's so weird that this figured it out. I guess base URL. If I do explore, I mean, that's the page we're on. Okay, what if we try Swagger UI base URL is 0.0.0.0? I feel like I need to probably be trying to set the base URL. Was that in the initializer file? I mean, that's URL. Why would URL? I'm saying, why would URL be different than base URL? Can I set base URL in here? I don't know if those are real. Swagger UI bundle. There's config URL. There's URL. There's URLs. There's primary name. There's no base URL. Swagger UI base URL is wrong. Base path? Reap Swagger? From a while ago. That's really weird. Yeah, I don't know. Base URL. What if we search base URL? Swagger UI base URL. Path. Does that mean we should have like servers here? This is like YAML. I don't know. I don't have any YAML. Like servers has a URL? Linking true. Didn't change anything. All right, well, we have documentation. We can't use the interactive stuff. That's not working because it's pointed at the wrong URL. I'm sure it's probably relatively easy to fix, but I'm not really understanding very quickly. This is weird to me that this whole page is like YAML, some kind of config file, but we have we don't have any of that. We have a JavaScript like constructor function. I don't know. You know, I'm sure that's documented somewhere, but it does not seem to be here. And not sure how to change it. So it is pretty cool. Let's take a look at what else is there, even though we can't use it. So it does tell us we can send a GET request to this. Can do all sorts of filtering, which all of this stuff is just built in to PostgREST. I didn't have to write anything for any of this, just by virtue of us creating that table. It's going to allow us to filter on all those things in the table. The value that we added to, you know, as one of the columns, the tag, the type, the timestamp, and then all kinds of ordering, ranging, preferring, limiting, all kinds of cool stuff we can do to filter out the data. Posting. Saw an example of posting in order to upload data. Let's see here. This one does timestamp. It didn't include the, so I mean, obviously it's still pointed to the wrong IP, so it's not going to work, but it also didn't include the token by default, so I guess it doesn't really have the token, right? Yeah, I don't think it really has the token right now, because we're just on the docs page. Have a delete, so we can tell it to delete one or more of our data objects, and then patch. I don't even really know what patch does. I guess that's going to be changing one, maybe. I'm used to put, I'm not familiar with patch at all. But it sounds like it would be changing one by, you know, like patching a value to another value, or I don't know. Query. It makes me think you would kind of like replace the one you found with it, but I don't really know for sure. So that's really cool, though, that we have that spun up with some super basic, albeit, you know, comprehensive, right? Like our API doesn't have anything else right now, but this will just automatically get added, right? As soon as we add more things, they should just show up here. Just super cool. Okay, let's work on a front end that will show some of our content. Which in fact, I have already created a little bit of, although it does rely on something else. Okay, actually, yeah, let's set up a little bit more in the backend. So right now, in our backend, what we have done is just created the table and allowed PostgREST to kind of like generate the HTTP API from that table. But PostgREST does have some other features that allow us to do some pretty interesting things. Let's look at this one to start with. So let's say that we wanted to, so like right now we can fetch all of the data out of the API by hitting this URL, right, /data values. This is going to give us all the data. We can also do a lot of the filtering, just like the API docs told us. We can do things like, I could say tag equals, and I think at least one of these is a different one, right? Yeah, Cornelius was, whoops, from, do tag Cornelius. I have done it wrong. Let's see, tag, failed to parse. Tag equals, unexpected C. Expecting not operator. Oh, right. You have to do the operator, tag.eq for equals. That still didn't work. Tag, is it an underscore? Let me look at some of my examples. Okay. So yeah, the operator goes in front of the value, which is just, it's weird in my head. It's backwards. So it needs to be tag equals, then you go eq dot to say equals, and then Cornelius, that's the value we want. So tag equals Cornelius will give us all the tags that are equal to that. Theoretically, I think we could do timestamps somehow as well, but I'm not sure. And the thing is, we're going to end up with really gnarly URLs. But what if we wanted like a nice, easy way to fetch, let's say, the last 5 minutes worth of data, right? Right now, it's easy for us to fetch all the data. It's easy for us to fetch by tag. We only have one type right now, which is temperature. We could fetch by that if we wanted. Obviously, it's all the same thing. We could maybe, like, technically, we could generate some URLs there. Like, this will probably tell us a little bit about it, timestamp. But it doesn't give us, like, you know, what do we need to type there, right? It's going to have to be formatted the exact right way. It's probably going to be kind of gnarly. It's not going to be the easiest thing to do in the world. What if we want to make it easier and just say, like, I want to be able to fetch, you know, the last 5 minutes worth of data, for instance. So one of the ways we can solve that problem is with views. Views are a thing inside of PostgreSQL, and then whenever you create a view, it's kind of like a, I think of it kind of like a sort of like shortcut or macro to a select statement or some other SQL statement. Is this actually running? Actually pasting? No, okay, this one is not actually running. I think I just probably imported it when we started running it yesterday. Post, yeah, there it is. That's the one that we'll import when we're ready. Okay. I got distracted for a second because I was thinking this is running and it's like posting every 10 seconds, I thought we were just filling up the data with loads of new stuff, which I guess would actually not be the worst thing in the world, truthfully. Import code post BME readings to I. Now we're going to be posting some new data into there. Do a quick fetch. Let's see that, yeah, all of these ones are 5.4 from yesterday, and then today we've got the 5.5 for just now, 16, 14, 16. Yeah, 14, 16, and then it's -5, which is my time zone. Interesting. So let's say we want 5 minutes worth of data, or maybe we want 1 day worth of data, because let's say we're capturing the temperatures and we want to be able to show like a line chart on a weather page, you know, a little dashboard or whatever. We want to be able to show like, this is, you know, the 1 day look, this is the, you know, 5 minutes is awfully small. We probably wouldn't necessarily be worried about that unless this was some like, you know, highly fine-tuned environment, you know, maybe inside your like greenhouse or something where you're like trying to keep a very precise temperature range for some very picky plants or something like that. Maybe 5 minutes you do, but like maybe 1 day or 1 hour, 1 week, that sort of thing. And it's super easy to do. We can create a view inside of our database, and then PostgREST will just do its magic and expose that view for us on the HTTP. So let's take the 5-minute view, and let's see, we are not going to be doing API temperatures anymore. Let me copy this. Let me say file setup API. Let's call it setup data value. This is views. Paste that one. Let's take that whole 5-minute one there. Let's paste that. Let's make that a SQL file. No data is configured. That's fine. Don't worry about that. We can call this, I mean, technically we can call it whatever we want. I'm going to call it data values underscore 5 minutes, or 5 min. We say create view, the name of the view, api.dataValues underscore 5 minutes as select all from API dot, that's going to be data values. That's our table, right? So we're select all from data values where timestamp, which remember that is one of our fields, that's one of our columns. We take a peek back to table here, we have the timestamp column right there. So where timestamp is greater than now minus interval, and then it says 5 minutes. So one of the cool things about PostgreSQL is that it, I mean, actually multiple of the really cool things about it, at least 2 of the really cool things about it are, one, you can say this little now function right here to conveniently just get the current time and like slip it in, you know, to a logical expression like this, which is super handy. So we could just say now, that's going to like automatically get the current time. We can also do this time comparison right here, time delta comparison thing, which is super cool. And we can do the changing, the time delta here, the minus. We can just say minus an interval of, in this case, 5 minute. But there's actually there's like a whole bunch of these things, right? There's like all the things you would imagine that work here. We could say like 1 day, 1 hour, you know, I'm sure there's a week one, and we can change the numbers. We can do all of that stuff, just kind of define it. And Postgre has got everything built in to make that work, which on the surface doesn't sound like a lot, but if you have ever done any programming with dates and times, then you will probably know that's actually like a lot of work to make all of that work correctly. So it's super cool that that works. We can just say while timestamp is greater than now minus 5 minutes. So, you know, greater than 5 minutes ago. Order by the timestamp descending, and that's it. So let's save that. Let's copy this. Let's add it into our database by, I almost want another, should I get another window? I'm pretty sure I want another window. Should try tiled. Do I actually? I don't know. Let's not worry about it right now. So in this one, we want to get to our database. So we're going to go change users to Postgres. We're going to go P. I always think it's really good to just go to home. So SU Postgres and then CD tilde. I think there's a flag you can pass to do it, but I don't know it off the top of my head. Anyway, that's putting us at home, which technically we don't necessarily need to be, but I also don't just want to be chilling in the other home because we don't really have write or read access to it. So then every time we do anything, it's like, hey, you're not allowed to see that. It's kind of weird. So anyway, we get into our database. We want to connect. We want to connect to our database because I did make a new database, remember? So PostgreSQL can have multiple databases. I created this one called IoTDB. When we first load in, we're going to be on the default one, which is Postgres. I'm sure there is probably an argument we could have put here in order to connect into the database we wanted. I didn't do it, so I'm just going to go connect IoTDB. Now we're going to be able to say that we want to do this. Blameroni, create that view. We have a semicolon, which is good, so we can enter that. There we go, create view. As you probably saw yesterday if you watched this, pretty much anytime you do something successfully, the way that PostgRe will do is kind of just do this, like, tell you what you did, right? You're telling it, I want to create a view. So, and it's saying, hey, create view. That was successful, basically. So now, I don't know if we need to refresh this or not. Let's go hit our API page. Actually, this is convenient because you can just refresh this. And yeah, it does not look like anything new showed up here. So let me try restarting this. And then reloading this again. And nothing really changed. Let me try. Make any difference? Make any difference? Let me think. I think we need to do more, actually. We need to do something else. We need to make this. What do we need to do? I mean, let's see, at a minimum, we would need to, do we need to grant access to Webinon? Let me go back to this one. Okay, I mean, that's just giving access to the table. I could have swore there's something we need to. There's something like this where I had to grant. To the views, I thought. Here we are. There we go. Yeah. Grant select on. We need to give. So we need to give the Webinon role access to run selects against our view. Let me take that. I'm actually going to put that into here. I think that makes sense. Then we're going to put the name to be that. We need to go inside the database. So let's run that. There it is, grant. Okay, now do we have it? Oh yeah, look at that. Data values 5 minutes. And so we have this whole API around it. I actually did not know you could do post and delete and all that, so that's good to know. We should watch out for that. We should probably try to figure out how to disable those. But with the get, we now have a get for data values 5 minutes. So if we go and hit that, that's 3000 data values underscore 5 min right there. So that's going to give us only data within the last 5 minutes. So we should not have any of yesterday's data. It's all 505. And it is in descending order. It should be. So we have 1425 at 51 seconds, at 41 seconds, 31 seconds, 21 seconds, so on and so forth, which is perfect. Okay, so that's cool. Now we have this little shortcut where we can look up data, in these time intervals. So I set up this one as 5 minutes. We could do one at 1 hour. We could do one at 1 day. We could do one at 1 week if we're trying to do like weather over the week or whatever. And that's really cool. It's convenient because we don't have to worry about like trying to figure out the right, the right argument format for having the timestamp equals, you know, GT dot and then some crazy date formatted string or whatever here. Like, there should be a way to do that, but I just imagine that URL being very gnarly. Whereas here we just kind of get, boom, data values 5 minutes, nice and easy. Now the downside is, you know, what if we want one that's 1 hour? Well, you know, you can just very easily copy paste this and be like 1 hour, make this 1 hour. Pretty much everything else will just work, I think. Drop that in the database. Well, not drop. Drop is like deleting. I shouldn't say that. In fact, create is like the opposite of the verb drop, in fact. I'll use 1 hour, so we do that. Okay, yeah, I will say this is super cool. The docs here, even though it's not actually working with the examples, it's super cool to be able to see your stuff live. He says as he refreshes, and it didn't actually show the new one. Do I need a mega F5? Do anything there? Let's see. So I did restart last time, but I thought that was before I fixed the permissions, and then do we need both to fix the... Oh, you need to, okay, we do need to restart. There we go. So data values 1 hour we have now, right there. And in my case, I don't, like, all of my data that's older than 1 hour is actually from yesterday. So in my case, the 5 minute and the 1 hour is probably pretty similar looking since I haven't been running it for that long today. Although eventually the oldest ones, you know, they would fall out of the 1 hour. In fact, what's our count here? Collapse all, we have 72. Is that more than 5 minutes worth? It is, yeah, okay. So we have only 28 readings for 5 minutes, which is 1 every 10 seconds. Should be 6 per minute. 6 times 5 is 30. 30 is kind of close to 28. Technically, we're 0-based, which means 29, which is then within the range of an off by 1 error, which I count as correct all day, right? Yeah, off by 1, that counts as correct, I think. So yeah, we can see definitely that that's working because 5 minute has many fewer things than 1 hour. And we can also see that we still don't have any, you're still looking at only today's data, right? We're not falling back to yesterday's data because, of course, that's not within 1 hour. All right, so this is cool. This would allow us to create these different views that let us pull out data with different intervals. But wouldn't it be cool if we could somehow make this still a little bit better, a little bit more dynamic to where maybe we could have something that's like, you know, like unit equals hour and, you know, amount equals, you know, 2 or 3 or whatever, right? Like, what if we had some happy middle ground between the gnarly URL with this date time encoded into it and this one here, which has no arguments but is kind of hard coded to 1 value? It'd be cool if we had, whoops, it'd be cool if we had this. Of course, now that stuff's gone. If we had this ability to kind of dynamically fill in this part right here and tell it, instead of just being hard-coded 1 hour, I want, you know, maybe sometimes I want 2 hours, or maybe I want 5 minutes, or maybe I want 1 day, or whatever. And I don't want to have to copy-paste these, right? Because we now see that we can just copy-paste all these things. We could have as many of these as we want. That's no problem. That would work. But it's going to get, you know, kind of laborious copy pasting these. And if we want to go back and change it or something, then it's no good. Bunch of extra work. So what if there was a better way? In fact, indeed, PostgreSQL once again comes at us with a really super awesome feature called functions. We can save these functions inside the database. And this basically gives us the ability to do exactly what I was just talking about. So we can create a function. We give it a name. So I called this API.dataLatest. We can define some arguments for it. In my case, I had one argument called num. That one's going to be an integer. I had one argument called unit. That one's going to be text. It returns a set of API.data values. Remember, that's the table. So it's telling us that it returns a set of rows from this table. And then we're saying as, because we're creating this function, we're creating it as this content right here, which in our case is in the language of SQL. So we've got this SQL statement inside of here. And then it's actually pretty straightforward what it's doing. So we're going select all, select all from API.data values. So select all from the table where timestamp is greater than now. Then we're going minus, and then here's where we get to our function arguments. We have $1 and $2, which are the function arguments. So num right there is going to be $1, unit is going to be $2, and then it's saying, this syntax is a little bit weird to me, but it's saying this : interval. So, we're effectively doing the same thing that we were a minute ago. We're effectively doing this same thing here where we've got timestamp greater than now minus interval 1 hour. This is just the way we write it to do it this way with arguments and stuff. So this is like concatenating strings, and that's like telling it what operator to do somehow. I don't really get the way that works, but it does. I looked it up. I wrote it based on how the docs are. And one of the things I found that's actually pretty cool is there are a load of different languages. There's lots and lots of different languages. In fact, even there's a Python that you can put in here where you could be writing Python code inside of this that gets like stored in the database and then you can execute, which is really crazy. I had no idea that it was like there was like scripting languages built into PostgreSQL like that, but okay, so this is what we want. This is what we want to have is instead of hard coding 5 minutes, 1 hour, all that stuff, we want this so the user is going to be able to pass those things in. We will need, let me grab this. There's data latest. Data latest, we're going to want that. So we need to grant permission to it the exact same way we granted permission to all the other stuff. So I'm actually going to put that in here. All right, that looks good. All right, actually, before I do that, I got to run to the restroom, so I'll be back in a minute.
You like the smell of Old Spice?
I don't know. Okay, let's see here.
Sorry.
This is basically, we do it the same way. We can just paste that in to our database shell right over here. Create that function. Technically, we could probably put both of these at once if we wanted, but I kind of like one at a time. We need to grant, again, we need to grant select access to that thing we just created. That part works the exact same way, whether it's a view or a function. So we need to grant that to Webanon. Did I paste a... No. Well, that's weird. So it seems like it worked, but... function API data latest, blah, 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 blah. Create function, which again, that's usually like, tells you it was successful. I mean, that one was commented out. We end up not needing that one? What if we just refresh, I guess, the docs? Okay, that one, I guess, works differently. Oh, we don't actually need that. Let me delete that. Okay, so this one works a little bit differently. It gets this RPC. I don't really know what RPC stands for, but it gets an RPC into the name of it, and then we can basically pass it our number and our unit. It doesn't support patch or delete. It does support post. I don't really know what the posting to it would do. Args, prefer string. Num0, unit string. Oh, I guess just instead of a get, you can do a post? It's still gonna fetch data? I don't really know what posting to it would do, though. I don't know about that. That's weird. But the get request is super straightforward. If we wanted to see, we can do /rpc/data latest. Now we want num. We could put whatever we want, but let's say I'll do 3 minutes. So num3 unit. Is it minutes? No, just minute. Roughly speaking, we have like, I want to fetch the data latest. I want to fetch the latest data from the last 3 minutes, basically. Num unit, but no matches were found. We probably need to restart again the PostgREST, right? Had to do that last time that we changed. Yeah, there we go. Now it's working. So data latest, num3. So that should give us the last 3 minutes. We got 17. We got 17 readings, which again, it's 1 every 10 seconds, which means technically we should have like 18 if it was perfect, but probably we slipped a little bit. Probably one of them is just a few milliseconds outside the window or whatever, would be my best guess. So we ended up with 17, but we can see that it's working. We could try 1 minute if we wanted. You know, now we get 6. Interesting, 1 minute is exact. But cool. Now we have the ability to fetch our data back out of the system within an interval of time, and we have it completely dynamically. We don't actually need these views anymore. We could go and delete those views, and we could just use this function now. We can always pass in whatever we want here. So super cool stuff. Let's use that on the front end and then put some of this data into a chart. I've actually got here. So we've got an index. Index has got CDN for Apex charts, and then it's got local app.js, which is right here, which has got this. So it has an async function, fetch data. That's going to call fetch. And yeah, technically we can do these as well. I didn't do this over here. But technically we can also still tack on the type and the tags. So, if we wanted all readings within the last minute from, whatever sensor was tagged with a specific tag, we can put that in here as well to specify. So in this case, it does specify, hey, I only want readings like data values that are of the temperature type, and I only want data values that are of the Glimmarch tag, which again, that's just, I think, a made-up word as far as I know. Hopefully it's a real made-up word and not something that means something, because I meant to make it up. Num equals 10, unit equals minute. So that's going to be fetching all temperature data values that are tagged with Glimmarch, which is what I put on the microcontroller, in the last 10 minutes. And then I think the only thing about this that would not be working is the fact that localhost, I don't think localhost, well, it's not on port 3000, on port 80, but localhost is wrong because that's going to be my local host, the client localhost, which is not where this is. We need servers localhost, which probably there's a way to do somehow, but I don't know it, so I'm just going to hard code it. Then reload this. And then, okay, so let's keep stepping through the code here. We're fetching, it is using that data latest, so it's fetching the last 10 minutes of the certain tag and only temperatures, although we don't have anything besides temperature yet. It gets that, it puts it into this variable response. It then parses that response as JSON, puts it inside this variable temperature data. It returns that. And so that's our fetch data function. Then we move into our kind of main code here. We've got a list of times. We've got a list of temperature values. We have got a chart container, which is an element. We go document.querySelector, chart container. I think that's just a div on the page. Yep. So we look that up. We call fetch data. We say when we're done fetching data, so fetch data, and then we want to do this, which is call this function, pass in the temperature data, print out a log statement, loop starting at 0, going to the length of the temperature data. Each time through the loop, we're going to create cur temperature data variable. It's going to be equal to the value we pull out of the list. Print that to the log. Push that into the temperature values list right there. We created that list back there. We're going to push this new value into it. We're going to push the times value in as well, cur temperature data timestamp. So we're building up two different lists, one of temperatures, one of times. Options. So this is all just options for the chart. The chart has a load of different things you can do to it. The name, I think, is just gets shown on the screen somewhere. Type, area, height. Zoom enabled, data labels false, curve straight. I don't know about that one. Temperature readings over time, left, temperature. So there's lots of just strings and stuff. X-axis, date, time. Opposite, false, horizontal align, left. So this is all just options that the charting library has. Then we go chart equals new apex charts. Amusingly, we don't bother using that query selector variable we looked up before, and instead we call query selector again, which is a nice touch. Let me change that. Chart container, there we go. So we give it the container we want it to go inside of. We give it the options object, which is this thing here that we just created. That's going to create us a chart object we call chart.render, and if everything works, that should render our data for us, which remember, that is grabbing the last 10 minutes worth of data, specifically temperature data, and then even more specifically from the tag Glimmarch. Okay, so putting it all together, let's see if all of that actually works. Let's get hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. So let me get the console ready to go here in case we need to look at any kind of errors or anything. Which indeed we did. Same origin. It's still trying to do localhost. Let me do a control shift. Let me do a hard refresh, basically. It still says localhost. Did I save? I saved. Okay, but I saved this here on my local computer inside the repo, right? That's not on the Raspberry Pi though. We need to fix that. Which I actually changed one other thing as well. Let me just copy this whole file over again. So copy app.js from the home directory where we just put it. In fact, let's even move it instead of copy it. Move it from there to up1.js. Yeah. There we go. Look at that. 10 minutes of temperature data charted. It is, I'm not taking it into different environments or anything, so our max range is very, 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 very small, but we do have, indeed, 10 minutes of data charted. 1939, which is about 10 minutes ago. 1949 would be the end of our chart on this side. And we could always change that up by changing this stuff here. If we wanted to get 20 minutes instead, we could save that. Of course, that's not going to take effect over there. So let me actually just not even bother with that. But, you get the point there. We could change that. We could even do drop downs or something if we wanted the front end to be able to choose that. What I'm imagining ultimately having, I think, is a front end which has a couple of different things. A few charts, probably like a 1 day chart, a 1 day line chart, and maybe a 1 hour one as well, something like that. Like one bigger one and one smaller one, and I'll hone in and figure out the exact times, but something like that, a day and an hour, or a couple of days, couple hours, something like that. And then I would like reading. So like I want to know the current, the most recent reading. I would like to see that just as text. And then I would also like to fetch some data from like Open Weather API, I think, and then put that on the same page. So I kind of am imagining kind of creating my own like weather page that incorporates actual data from an API, Open Weather API, but then also incorporates information from my temperature sensor, and ultimately maybe multiple temperature sensors. So that's where the tags come in, is I have in mind the idea of like, maybe I could put one of these things outside in like a weatherproof box or something, tag that one with outside, and then have another one that's tagged with inside, and then I could maybe plot both of those or whatever. But I could refresh here to see the latest data. Yeah, we can see it's gone up a little bit there. If let me put my finger by it. We'll see if my finger is above or below the temperature. Let it sit. So it's taking one reading every 10 seconds. So I'll let it sit here for a couple of seconds and then refresh. We'll see if it goes up or down. Down, way down. Okay, so my finger is much colder. Well, I say much colder, but it's like, obviously 1635, right? It's not 0.04, right? So on this scale we're looking at, it's way down, but obviously the scale we're looking at is very, very magnified. So potentially to the point of being misleading, but that's all right. It is cool nonetheless. This is my finger, apparently. All right, I think I'm going to call it there for now. So we got this documentation page visible and actually showing rather than just the JSON. This is super cool because it allows us to test and see if our new functions are working or not. It also allows us to like just get a list of everything that we're allowed to do with the API. I think I actually want to go back and delete these ones. Let me do that. API data values 5 min. Pretty sure the way we can delete those is just delete view API dot data values 5 min colon. Is it drop? I think it's drop. There we go, drop view. Okay, let me restart this and just see if that worked, and then we'll do the other one. Yeah, there we go. So 5 min is gone. We have just 1 hour and data latest. So now let's get rid of 1 hour as well. I think you don't have to do that, Shouty, if you don't want to. Yeah. Refresh here. Okay, that actually went live somehow, so we didn't need to restart that time, but it somehow worked. So now we're down to just the table one, which lets us fetch all data, pending the filters and stuff like that, because you can still do the filters. Whereas this one is specifically that function we created that lets us fetch the latest data using whatever number and whatever unit we want. So, yeah, I'm going to stop there for now. I have not documented the rest of this part in the playground yet. The playground page is still very much the back-end half of this, but I do intend to ultimately add a section kind of talks about this more front-end stuff as well, creating this page with the graph and stuff like that. I don't know if I'll do my whole grand visions for the weather dashboard in the playground page. I mean, that's my plan to use the project for, but the actual playground page, I think I'm going to keep a little bit more generic and have it just be kind of like, get you to the point where you have the database, show you an example of pulling data out of the database and doing something with it, like this basic graph that we have so far. And then, it's kind of like that's really what the playground will do. It's kind of up to you to take it further than that, depending on what your data is, how many things you have, all that kind of stuff. So my own version of further than that is that weather dashboard, but somebody else's may be something a bit different. So I will head out for now. As a reminder, I am back on Friday this week. I'll do a deep dive. Scott is going to be out and about, unavailable for deep dive, so I'm going to do that on Friday. That is at, it's at 4 p.m. Central Time, which is my time zone. It's at 2 p.m. Eastern. No. It's at 2 p.m. Pacific, and it's at 5 p.m. Eastern. All of those are the same time on Friday. So check that out on Friday, and then I'll be back for my usual stream Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Next Saturday, I do believe. So take it easy, everybody. Have a good day. Have a good what's left of your Sunday and weekend. I will catch you later, and thanks again.